Welcome to Stoke-on-Trent, Newcastle-under-Lyme, Fenton, Longton, Tunstall, Burslem and Hanley. 6 towns and 1 neighbour that make up this fascinating area that is also the home to Europe's first disco, Britain's biggest teapot, Gertie Gitana? No? There's an old mill by the stream in LED. Oh, forget it. Also, did you know, here's a fascinating fact, Josiah Wedgewood's eldest daughter's son was Charles Darwin, the theory of Stoke City Football Club. There's a whole world down there, and we're going to explore it. Yeah, give yourself a wipe. I'm sorry, but they only give umbrellas to the presenters. See, I told you there were 6 towns, and this is why they're here and why they're famous for pottery. Or at least, that is, the different layers of coal that was under them there hills. But you needed more than just coal to make famous bone china. You need Cornish stone, you need animal bone, 50% of it is bone, and china clay. Now, I'm going to take you on a whistle-stop tour, one of my famous ones, to show you the process of making bone china. And there's no better place that I can show you than here at the Gladstone Museum. This used to be the Gladstone Pottery, and it was exactly the same as this 200 years ago when it first opened, and it's not been touched since then. Just look at those bottle kilns. Absolutely amazing. The whole place was saved at the 11th hour. It was all going to be bulldozed when some enthusiasts got together and said, please save it, and I'm so glad they did. Come on. This is the engine room, exactly as it was. Stunning. Look at it, working away. Absolutely brilliant. And the little rag picking up oil to make the whole movement smooth. Very simple, very brilliant. This is the slip house. And slip is the first sort of mixture of all of the components that make up the china. And this is where it would be mixed together to take about 12 hours to mix it all together. And then once you've got your slip, you'd put it through the first of the presses there, and then onward into the next part of the procedure. Actually, I'm going to break off just for a second to introduce you to a sagger maker's bottom knocker. And not only that, the oldest one in the world. This is Richard, 90 years old. Hiya, Richard. Now then, he's lost his voice. He's got problems with his larynx, but he's going to do a job now that no machine can do, invented to this day. Show them, Richard. Away you go. That's sawdust and sand. It's all in the wrist action. He has put a perfect level over what would be the bottom of the sagger. That's the first stage of making the sagger. I'm going to show you more later on. Thanks, Richard. Right. Once you've got your slip into here, pressed, get rid of all of the air, because when it went into the kiln, it would explode if it had air in it. This is where the working took place. This is the potter's wheel, and that would be turned by, don't knock on that, that would be turned by a child or a woman, maybe a child as young as 10 or something, all day long, turning the wheel for the potter, like that. There's some lovely machines down here where you did different processes, like pressing, making bowl. This is for jollying, for making plates. And they had a lovely thing called jiggering as well. This is where you can throw your own pot, like I was doing at Porthmadog not so long ago, if you remember. And down here, some beautiful, delicate little pieces that are still being produced to this day. These lovely little animals, hedgehogs and things, and beautiful. And some super flowers down here. A rose just having the final petal put on it by Joyce. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely. Now, I want to show you what happened to those saggers. Once Richard had made his saggers, they were brought here to a biscuit oven and stored inside this huge oven. Go on, have a look at them. There are, when it's full, 2,000 saggers inside there, and each one of them would contain about 20 pieces of work, so 20,000 pieces of work being baked at any one time. The whole process taking about 4 days, and what they would do is brick up the whole of that doorway. So, come on lads, bring on the bricks. This is Johnson Brothers, which is part of the Wedgewood group. Now then, the other thing that the Potteries needed desperately was water, loads of it in the shape of canals, so they could bring the raw materials in and get this beautiful, delicate china back out again. James Brindley was the man who was called in to do it. You may remember him when we were up in Manchester, the canal and bridge builder. And look, this is the last surviving canal boat that's used within the Potteries. They've loaded it up, they're just about to cast off, and it's going to go down here, which is the Calden Canal, to one of the other factories. Let's move on with a cradle-to-grave story about a man who was famous from these 6 towns. In fact, he wrote about the 6 towns a lot. His first novel was in 1898, and it was called A Man from the North, which indeed he was. The 6 towns were the basis for quite a few of his novels, and indeed his most famous novel, which, as you've already noticed, is actually called Anna of the 5 Towns. Now, lots of people think that's because his mother-in-law came from Fenton, and that's why he left Fenton out. But actually, that's not true, because he was married to a French woman. So she was hardly from Fenton, was she? He just thought it sounded better, Anna of the 5 Towns, rather than Anna of the 6 Towns. And this, the 5 Towns cap, is actually where he was born, although in those days it was a pawn shop. And this is where he's buried. I told you it was a cradle-to-grave story. This is actually his grave, or where his ashes lie. Enoch Arnold Bennett, that was his full name. He actually died in France. What he did was he drank some of the local water, and he said, there's nothing wrong with the local water. Unfortunately, he then contracted typhoid, a case of dying for a drink and then dying for a drink. Now, you look as though you've got a Titanic thirst on you. Well, you're in the right place. Now, this is interesting. Edward Smith, pretty trustworthy sort of name. Well, he came from here, and he was a captain on the White Star liners. He was also the captain on the Titanic. They built a monument to him here, but unfortunately, by the time they'd finished it, the ship had gone down. So they moved it off to Lichfield. But there's a little microbrewery which has taken up the ship's name and given its ales some names to do with the ship. They've got one called Lifeboat Ale. They've got one called Captain Smith's Ale. And they've even got one called Wreckage, which is really strong in alcohol. You see, this is all you need. Here's your malts and your hops, and you've got your casks. And I tell you what, this one's for me because it's even got my name written on it. You haven't got a straw, have you? Come on, the night is drawing in and the weather's getting more and more inclement. I'm going to take you to a nice hotel which is connected with Josiah Wedgewood. Actually, so is this, a ghost story to send you off to sleep. Molly Lee was a witch in 1748, and she was supposed to be related to Josiah Wedgewood. Now, when she died, they buried her here on April the 1st, and after the funeral, the vicar and 1 or 2 officials went back to Molly's cottage, right up on the tops, and they found her in her cottage, sitting on her rocking chair with her favourite blackbird on her shoulder. It's true. Now, they came back at midnight because they decided that Molly ought to be buried in a different way to everyone else in the churchyard. Not east to west, but north to south. That's why this grave is the only grave that points that way in the whole of St. John's Churchyard in Burslem, or Boslem, as the locals call it. They also buried her blackbird with her, and her mother, who outlived her, was buried on top of her to keep her down. Morning. I trust you slept well after the ghost story? Oh dear, I'm sorry. I'm also sorry that I'm late. You know, I set the alarm, but Mickey's arm fell off. Anyway, this is the house that Wedgewood built. Josiah Wedgewood the First. It's now part of the Moat House Hotel, and they've got this lovely display of the plates. And do you know that one of those services costs £38,000 for a 6p rupees dinner service. It's true, that's what Frank Sinatra paid for it. Anyway, come with me, I'm going to show you something very special which most people don't get to see. Down here, hall, and he built the village for his workers, and he called it Ituria because he named it after the Etruscans because he admired their work so much. You can see it's an absolute labyrinth of corridors and tunnels and that go on forever and ever and ever. But I'll show you some special parts. Come on. This is a nice bit here. It's a huge, big, old safe, which is extremely heavy. But inside, some nice bits, like that plaque, which is yet to go up, which is commemorating the bicentenary of his death, specially made by Wedgwood, and this specially made plate, which shows the hall from the outside, worth an absolute fortune. Don't knock either of them over. Back up, I want to show you, all right, I'll go past you. I want to show you something round here. Now, this is perhaps Wedgwood's biggest secret. He built this, or at least this is part of it, a tunnel which went under the canal and up into the village and the factory. And the idea was he should be able to sneak along and find out whether his workers were doing their job properly. It's true. Unfortunately, Josiah had a wooden leg. So as he went down this tunnel, he used to drag his leg, and it used to make a noise, and it gave him away. And he never once managed to catch his staff out. So that's what it looks down here, but this, Ituria Hall, not bad for a lad who left school at 12 and had this company up and running by the time he was 30. Yes, good morning, British weather, lovely. Do you also know that Josiah Wedgewood was a strong opponent of slavery, and he had some little medallions made that said, "Am I not a man and a brother?" And he had some shipped to Benjamin Franklin. Yes, I need something to help me find my way around this town. This is no good. Look, 6 and 6. Where did you get that from? Probably hasn't even got the M6 on it. This is no good. I've got to go out there and find a statue to one of Staffordshire's other favourite sons. I've found it. Come on, you'll have to climb over this lorry which is delivering. It's a tribute to one of the greatest footballers in the world, Sir Stanley Matthews, born in Hanley on the 1st of Feb 1915, the first footballer ever to be knighted. Of course, he made his name really with Blackpool Football Club, but he did return to Stoke City in 1961, and he took them to newfound success as champions of the second division. And do you know, he was still playing pro football when he was 51 years old. Amazing. And you see the football up there, have a look up. That was once stolen, and the people who stole it felt so guilty that it's just delivering some more, that they took it and left it in a phone box with a message saying, "We're very sorry." And from a man who's won the hearts of many an audience to this, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. The new Victoria Theatre in Newcastle-under-Lyme. And here, with the Victoria Theatre Company, was the home for Britain's first ever professional theatre in the round. And do you know that that was as late as 1962? But you see, I don't think that's right, because I go and watch Manchester United in the round, and that's a theatre with passion, with flair, with... Oh, all right, yeah. But I'll tell you what, today's football could do with meeting the man in here. And this is it, the theatre in the round. They're getting ready for tonight's performance of A Bedroom Farce. And come round here. Meet Ian Gregory, who is Reverend Ian Gregory, a minister who started the Polite Society. And you have actually some sort of connection with the theatre, don't you?
I have, in fact. I come to some of the performances. My daughter is a receptionist here. My son-in-law there is the stage manager. So we have quite a considerable connection with this theatre, and it's beautiful and a very great asset to the area.
And it's your ministry here anyway, isn't it?
Well, this locality, yeah.
Yeah. Now, tell us about the Polite Society. You started it. Why did you start it?
It started in 1986 when friends of ours came back from Malaysia. They'd been teaching there for 2 years and they'd experienced great courtesy and remarkably good service in the shops, and people were kind to them. And they came back to this country and could hardly believe what had happened while they'd been away, because we'd become a truculent nation. People were unwilling to give willing service to anybody, and all kinds of things were going wrong. And we thought, well, let's start a polite society which just asks people to be considerate in their daily behaviour. We drew up a code of courtesy. And we say to people, if you think you can keep this, or at least try, because none of us is an angel, join.
And how do you join?
Well,
and what do you do when you do join?
You send us a minimum of £3 a year, and we send a newsletter 3 times a year. We have an annual meeting to which people can come in London, and we have a National Day of Courtesy, which we ask people to take part in, which is the first Friday in every October.
Super. And is it beginning to have an effect, do you think?
I think so. It's always hard to quantify things like this because we're only an organisation of, say, 1,500 people. But people are now talking about the way things are on football terraces and the way things are on the roads, and they're beginning to say, perhaps the answer isn't more legislation. Perhaps the answer is for people to take more responsibility for their own behaviour and the way we respond to the aggression of other people in the shops and everywhere we meet them.
Absolutely.
So, perhaps it is having an effect. I don't know. I hope so.
Good luck with it. Good luck with it. Well, I think we better move, because I know we're not too far away from them coming out tonight and the audience coming in over the moment. Ian, thank you very much indeed. Cheers. Hello there. How do you do? Hi. Lovely day. Well, I'm being polite. I've got my Polite Society badge. See? In fact, you need that more than I do. Go on. Now, back up. Now, in Staffordshire, oat cakes are incredibly important, and they have been since the 18th century. In fact, probably earlier than that, although there's no record of it. They're usually rolled up with all sorts of savouries inside them. They're made by teams usually of 2. This time it's Andy and Wendy, his wife. There are 24 little companies making them in Staffordshire. This is one of them. I'm told that the recipe is always a secret. Come on in. Now, you're going to start steaming up in a second, so get ready to wipe yourself. Here they are, going onto the griddle. Look, coming out automatically out of the machine. Brilliant. What a clever little device. And Andy, what sort of things do people put inside them? They roll them up, do they?
Yeah, they put bacon, cheese, onion, sausage, or anything really. Anything if you want to like it, doesn't matter what you put in.
So it's mainly savouries and not sweet stuff?
You can have jam in, yeah. People put jam in and tuna. Obviously that's going to be cold.
And how many of them are you producing in a day, roughly speaking?
Between 1 and 200 dozen.
1 and 200 dozen?
Between that, yeah.
The recipe, I'm told, there are secret parts of the recipe.
They're all secret, yeah.
And the recipe's actually sold with the business, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Really brilliant. Now then, I'm also told that you can send them in the post.
Yeah, I do that, yeah. I do that regularly, send them all over the country. Cornwall, Scotland, Ireland.
And they keep all right in the post?
Yeah, well, we send by first class post and they get there then by the next day, so it's only a matter of about 24 hours and they're there.
This is actually called a backstone, isn't it?
Backstone, yeah.
A backstone, which means back stone, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So that would have been over the fire. Do you fancy sending some in the post then? You're steaming up again. So, you posted the oat cakes with marmalade, and they're apparently going to meet up with us at Offa's Dyke. A strange person. Anyway, this is something you don't see too often, although there are plenty of them around. This is a greyhound track, and did you know that at the time of the Second World War, greyhound racing was Britain's most watched sport? Take it away, Tom. Over there, those dogs are going to come flying out in a second. They're going to go chasing the hare. And they'll get up to speeds of around 32, 33 miles an hour. Greyhounds originally come from Ireland, and it was actually hare coursing that they used to do, but they brought it into the stadiums in this century, And it's still very popular in the northwest and the Midlands area. Oh, well, don't look so sad. It's not a real hare. You don't get yellow hares. Actually, it's an electric one. You'd like that. And Tom up there is the person operating it. Go on up and have a look. They are. Fetch. You see, that is a proper working man's sport. It's a sort of poor man's horse racing, because it's cheaper to keep a greyhound than it is a dirty, great big thoroughbred. Now, to the other end of the scale, the most expensive pottery in the world. These are the prestige rooms within Minton, which is part of Royal Dalton. And not many people get in this room. And believe me, not many people as clumsy as you get in these rooms. So be extra careful. Backwards, over here, I want to show you how it works. If I show you these two little saucers, a copper plate puts the pattern onto the saucer, and then a paste is put on top of that, and then this gold paint is painted on top of the paste, and when that's fired, that'll all come out gold. I'll show you some more up here. Watch the plates. The great thing about this place is that they've kept everything since day one, 200 years ago. They've kept all of the patterns, all of the books, all of the plates. This book, 1887, this old book, and it's got all the beautiful old patterns in it. You see that? They're all kept and logged, given a name and a number. And then this is an old plate, KG, King George Coffee. This is a plate for a coffee cup. I don't know whether you can see the pattern on it. And what you do is you put this tissue on and then rub it, and the pattern comes through, and then you put that pattern onto a cup, and here is a King George coffee cup with that pattern on, beautifully painted up with the gold and everything. John's doing some at the moment. He's pasting up just round here, and he's building up a layer of paste on a tiny little coffee cup, and then the gold will be put on top of that. Steady, steady hands. Right, come with me. I want to show you something else. These are wonderful. There's only 20 of them commissioned. Sold all over the world, particularly in Japan. £10,000 a piece. Yes, so please watch what you're doing. And Lynn's work over here. This is Lynn Summer, working away. This is one of her plates, hand-painted. This one for Harrods, a one-off. Isn't that beautiful? That one was actually painted in the store. And that eventually will be presented to Mohammed Al-Fayed. Priceless. So we have to be careful. And she's working away now. Now, you know, I was telling you upstairs that they keep all of the patterns. They also keep examples of all of the pots. Come and have a look at this. This is the museum, which is open to everyone who may want to come in and have a look. This peacock, absolutely exquisite, extremely valuable. You can come in here, have a look at something, and you can say, oh, I like that. I think I'll have something made like by that. And you can specially commission it and have it made just for you. And believe me, on our budget, we are not going to have any of that made. Not even a thimble. And finally, to the largest piece of pottery that you're going to see in this area, the huge milk jug type thing that you can see from the M6. Actually, it's just a Folly that was built by the lord of the manor. It was a sort of summer house they could come and sit in occasionally. Although this particular hill does have historical importance, because the Ranters used to meet here, and they were the primitive Methodists. They used to meet on this hill, and the Methodist movement is still very strong in this area. Most of the churches are Methodist churches. Now, next time you join me, I'm going to be taking a look at Offa's Dyke, from top to bottom, the England-Wales border. And I'm going to ask, how can such a silly little ditch keep two nations apart? I don't know why, but I aim to find out. I'll see you then.
Will sea trout take the bait in Andy's Angle? Next.